Hello, sweet friends. Welcome to 11.7b, volume of pyramids and cones. And so last week we did prisms and cylinders, which we know, of course, have two bases. These shapes are both going to have one base. Okay, so last week we learned that the volume formula, if they had two bases for prisms and cylinders, was base times height. So we know that that is not possible to keep the same formula on this, because we can tell that if I were to put a triangle on the roof of this shape as well, this turns from a pyramid to a prism, we can tell that this is less volume. And so what y'all are going to see is that this is actually going to be, let's see, if I were to color this in, this is going to be a third the amount. If I were to fill this with water, a third of the amount of the volume of this entire shape would fit into that blue square, or the triangular pyramid. Okay, so this is going to be a third. So we're going to have to divide this by 3 every time. Okay, so if I were to just kind of sketch that out here as well, if I were to turn this into a prism, we know that the space that is fitting in this pink part is going to be not in the shape, so the space that fits in the yellow part, the actual rectangular pyramid is going to be a third the amount, okay? That's very easy to see too as well for a cylinder. If I were to turn this into a can, like a can of chicken noodle soup, the amount of soup that fits into that part of the cone is going to be a third the amount of the rest of the cone, okay? So we're gonna have to divide by 3 every time. So we're going to solve for the volume on most of these. For pyramids, round to the nearest tenth. For cones, leaves in terms of pi. Some of these we're going to have to round because they're not very pretty as well. So what shape is this? This is going to be a rectangular, because there's my base, a rectangular pyramid. So it's going to be base times height divided by 3. Okay? We already have the height that we need. We have our internal height. So when we're doing heights, our height is happening on the inside because that's where the space is happening. So think of it like, where would the water be, since we're talking about volume. For slant height, we did that for the walls, which are slanted. So my walls are slanted, but for volume, we're looking at the inside space. So we do need the capital H. So what does B represent? B represents the area of the base. So what is the area of this base? It's a rectangle. So of course, that's going to be 5 times 3. What is 5 times 3? It is 15. What is my internal height? It is 4. And then we're going to divide that by 3. Okay, so when you type that in, that is going to be 15 times 4 is 60 divided by 3 is going to give me 20. Of course, my units are going to be inches cubed because volume is always units cubed. It's how many tissues fit in the tissue box, how much water fits in your water bottle. Okay, but we're talking about pyramids and cones specifically today. So what shape is the base on this one? This is a triangular, right triangular, if you see it, a right triangular prism. And so I'm going to do pyramid, base times height divided by 3. So volume is going to be equal to, we've got to find the area of that base. Well, it's a triangle. So that's going to be 3 times 3 divided by 2. So there's my legs of my right triangle. So 3 times 3 is 9. Half of 9 is 4.5. So there's my area of the base. What is my height? Well, thankfully on this one I have it. I got my height. My height is going to be 4, so times 4 divided by 3. When we type that in, 4.5 times 4, you can change that to a star if you want to. It means the same thing. It's going to give me 6. And of course, our units are always going to be cubed. It's the inside space. Now this one doesn't have a picture, so if in doubt, you can always draw it out. It says a square pyramid, so I just like to draw a square. I like to draw it coming to a point. You don't have to draw the whole thing unless you want to. There's my internal height. It says a square pyramid has side lengths of 24. Well, since it's a square, that's going to be 24 meters by 24 meters. Okay? And it has a height of, an altitude, it calls it. So another word for height is altitude. So that from the tip top of that pyramid to the center of that square base is going to be 10. So whenever we go to find the volume of this shape, we're going to do base times height divided by 3. So what is my base going to be? Well, 24 times 24 is going to give me the area of that base, which is what B stands for. 24 squared is, what is that, 576? Let me double check. You can even let your calculator do it. 24 squared, you can do it all at once. So that's going to be 24 squared. Yep. And then times my height of 10, and then divided by 3. So when we do that, we know that's going to be 5,760 divided by 3. That is going to give me 1920. So 1,920 meters cubed of space would fit inside of this square pyramid. All right, now the next one seems scary. Number 4, we have a pentagonal pyramid. But do not stress, because it gives me the pentagonal base area already. It says, hey, this entire base area is 42, so we don't have to calculate it. We already have the 42. What is my height? My height is 7 centimeters, so times 7 divided by 3. When we do that to find the volume, we're going to get centimeters cubed of space. That should be 98 is what I got. So 42 times 7 divided by 3. All right, friends. Number 5, what shape is number 5? Well, it's all about that base. So you're going to name it by its base. And here is my internal height. Well, y'all, I don't have it. The 22 is pointing to a slanted height. Okay, so I'm going to move that. I'm going to scribble this out and move it over here so we can see a little bit better. So I know that I'm going to have to find that slanted height. So let's go ahead and put the area of the base first. What is 14 squared? That is going to be 196. So I've got my base. I just need my height, right? And so I'm going to have to work with this little baby right triangle. So I'm going to do this. I like to draw it out to the side. Miss Mayhew does this sometimes as well. We've got the 22. What is the bottom of that going to be? Well, halfway across the square is going to be 7. So we're going to use some Pythagorean theorem. So we're going to go h squared plus 7 squared equals 22 squared. So, of course, you're going to type 22 squared into your calculator. It's going to be 22 squared minus 7 squared. If you want to go ahead and round that, you can. It's going to be the square root of 435, okay? It is not a perfect square. It is going to be about 20.9. So at this point, if you want to round that to 20.9, you can. I just need you to tell me what that is right here, what you're using for your height. In my class, I'm okay with y'all going ahead and rounding. It's more accurate if you round at the very, very end. But if you would like to go ahead and round that to about 20.9, you can. As long as you write down the 20.9 so I know where you got it, that would be fine. So how you type this in if you wanted to wait and round at the very, very end is 196 root 435. You multiply those together, and then you divide by 3. So if you round at the very, very end, it's going to be 1362.6 centimeters cubed. If you rounded that to 20.9, you'd get 1365.5. As long as you record that, I am totally fine with that. All right, now it says the volume of the square pyramid is, and it wants us to manipulate the formula for the side length. So scribble out the V and change that to an S for me. Whenever it says we want to manipulate a formula, if you are going to manipulate a formula, you have to have a formula to manipulate. So go ahead and start with the formula. Volume equals. We need this equal sign, and we need something on both sides. So what does it say the volume is that I can plug in? I get to plug in 2160 equals the base times the height. Y'all, we do have the height. It tells us in the picture that this is 15, and then that is going to be divided by 3. So if we want to get into the numerator to find out what the base is, we need to get rid of the denominator. So what do you do in your calculator? That's 2160 times 3, and you get 6480. That's what is equal to 15b. So let's go ahead and record that for the people that are watching the video. 6480 equals b times 15. So we know we're just going to end up dividing both sides by 15. So divide by 15, divided by 15. That is going to give me the area of the base. The base area is equal to 432. Well, it wants to know if this is 432. Oh gosh, 432. It wants to know if that's the area of the base, then what is the side length? So what is the side length going to be? Well, this is a square, right? So it's going to be S by S. And so if we want to define that, S squared is equal to 432. So what is S going to be equal to? The square root of 432. So I'm going to take the square root of 432. If I rounded that, we're going to say approximately 20.8. What are my units? My units are in feet. Okay? So we were able to find a side length because that was a square pyramid. All right, now let's look at cones. What do we know about cones? Cones always, always, always have circular bases, right? And so if I'm finding the area of that circular base, we know that that is always going to be, area of that base is going to be pi r squared. So if you wanted to simplify this formula a little bit, you could. Base times height divided by 3 is going to be pi r squared times your height divided by 3. So it's going to be pi times my radius is 1 squared times my height. My internal height is going to be that 3 divided by 3. 1 squared times 3 divided by 3. When we leave it in terms of pi, that means to wait until the very, very end. You leave the pi in, and then if you wanted to round it, so we're going to have an answer in terms of pi, and then at the very, very end, if you wanted to round it, and you were going to have to chop off part of the answer. So this is what pi is going to be equal to. How many pi's is this going to be equal to? So y'all, you know that you can go ahead and cancel out those 3's, but if you want to type them in, you can. 1 squared is 1, times 3 is 3, divided by 3 just gives me 1. So I have 1 pi centimeters cubed exactly. Now, if we wanted to round that to see approximately what that is, that's going to be about 3.14 centimeters cubed of volume in the shape. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write this version of the formula. Volume equals pi r squared times h divided by 3. So what is my radius on this problem? My radius is only halfway across, so my diameter is 10, so my radius is going to be 5. I like to cross that out when I'm done with it. Pi times 5 squared times my inside height of 11 divided by 3. So again, we're going to leave this in terms of pi. So that means leave a pi in your answer so that you're not having to chop off any part of the answer because pi is irrational. So 5 squared, I know we talked about that the other day, and had a really good conversation about it. Okay, it is 91.6 repeating. I will give you full credit if you write 91.6 repeating pi. However, that is going to be inches cubed. However, on a multiple choice test, such as the ACT, they might put it in improper fraction form. Of course, we know how to do that on our calculator. Second PRB, second ABC. So 275 over 3 pi inches cubed is how they might format that on an ACT. Okay? All right, number 9, it does not have a picture, so if in doubt, you can always draw it out. It has a radius of 5, and it has an altitude or an inside height of 10. So altitude is that height on the inside, straight down from the top of the cone to the bottom of the cone. Okay? So we're just going to use our formula. Volume equals area of the base is going to be pi r squared times that height divided by 3. So that's going to be 5 squared. It's 25, of course, times 10 is 250 over 3. So that's going to be 83.3, but it's just as a improper fraction. That's going to be 250 over 3. Again, second ABC, PRB, second ABC. This is the exact answer. If you put 83.3 repeating, that would also be fine. Okay, just as long as you know how to match that up. It just does make it faster if you know how to use your calculator. All right, now this one's interesting. This one, I do not have my height that is happening on the inside because I have my slanted height. So of course, this makes a right triangle. So I'm going to do volume equals pi times 10 squared, but we need that inside height. So I'm going to go h squared plus 10 squared equals 22.4. I already know when I'm doing this that this is not going to give me a beautiful number. 22.4 squared minus the 10 squared. It's going to be the square root of 401.76, okay? So root 401.76. If you wanted to round that, that is totally fine. You're just going to be rounding twice, once at now and then once at the end. If you wanted to round that to about 20, that is totally fine. Just make sure you record it right here for me for what you're rounding that to, okay? I'm going to go ahead and take that number, and I'm going to multiply it by 10 squared, and then I'm going to divide that by 3. You're going to try to turn that into a fraction, and this is... you go second PRB, second ABC. And what it's going to do is it is going to, hold on, let me get back out of that. Clear, enter. We've got divided by 3. And so you're going to try to turn that into a fraction, and it is not going to work. Okay? And so we're going to go ahead and put this, we're going to go ahead and multiply it by pi. Math. Here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and multiply that by 3 by pi, and this is going to be about 2,098.9, so we're going to round that to 2,099 miles cubed, okay? 2,099 miles cubed. So just because that one was going to be an irrational number, we're just going to go ahead and round it out. If you rounded that to 20, it'd be 2,094.4 miles cubed, okay? All right. Volume equals pi times, again, we've got to find our height here. So we're going to have to use Pythagorean theorem. So that's going to be pi times 6 squared. What is my height going to be? My height is going to be h squared plus 6 squared equals 11 squared. So of course, we're doing 11 squared minus 6 squared. That gives me root 85. Okay, so I'm going to use root 85. If you want to go ahead and round that, you can to 9.2, but I'm going to leave that up to you. It's just most accurate if you leave it as root 85 and round at the very, very end only once. All right, so I'm going to do the square root of 85, and I'm going to multiply that by 6 squared, and then I'm going to divide that by 3. This gives me a volume of, oh, my goodness, 2,85769 over 2,583 pi feet cubed. And then if you did that as a decimal, if we wanted to go ahead and round that and you want multiply it through by pi, that would be about 347.6 feet cubed. Okay? So there's my, in terms of pi, scary looking answer with my improper fraction, and then there is my rounded answer. All right, they say the volume of the cone is, if you want to manipulate a formula, you have to start with a formula. So let's go ahead and write our formula. Pi r squared times h over 3. What do they say the volume is? We get to fill in 300 pi. So 300 pi equals pi times my radius squared, which is 5 squared, times my height, which I don't know, that's what we're looking for, over 3. Okay, so if I want to get into the numerator to solve for h, I need to get rid of the denominator. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do 300 times 3, which of course is going to give me 900 pi. I'm leaving the pi there because I know a pi is about to cancel out. So what is 5 squared? 5 squared is 25. So there's h. The pi's cancel out of both sides. Divide by pi, those go away. And then you get to do 900 divided by 25. So when you divide by 25, do that on both sides. Divide by 25, divide by 25. Those cancel. 900 divided by 25 is going to give me a height of 36. My units are inches, so this is 36 inches tall. I hope y'all are having a fabulous day.